The night of Christmas 1996. Welcome back to Uncovering Crime Tales. Tonight, we revisit one of the most chilling and mysterious true crime cases in the world, the shocking murder of a 6-year-old beauty queen, JonBenét Ramsey. A crime committed on Christmas night inside her own home, a ransom note that defied logic, and an investigation that left the world divided for decades. Was it a kidnapping gone wrong, a dark family secret, or a cold-blooded intruder hiding in the shadows? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear is a story filled with secrets, lies, and unanswered questions that still haunt America to this day. On the night of December 25, 1996, Boulder, Colorado, was dressed in the soft silence of Christmas. Houses glowed with holiday lights, families enjoyed their last slices of pie, and the city lay calm under a blanket of winter snow. Inside one of those houses, a large, picturesque home on 15th Street, the Ramsey family seemed to be ending the day like any other American family. But within hours, the world would know their name, and their story would become one of the most haunting mysteries in modern true crime history. The Ramseys were not ordinary. John Ramsey was a successful businessman, president of Access Graphics, a computer services company that had recently crossed $1 billion in sales. His wife, Patsy Ramsey, a former beauty queen from West Virginia, was known for her charm and love for high society events. They had 2 children, 9-year-old Burke and 6-year-old JonBenét, a bright, blonde-haired little girl who had already become the center of attention in child beauty pageants. JonBenét wasn't just a participant. She was a star, often winning titles and trophies, and Patsy adored dressing her up in elaborate costumes. To neighbors and friends, the Ramseys looked like the perfect American family, wealthy, beautiful, and successful. But as we know from many true crime stories, appearances often hide cracks, and behind the festive decorations of their mansion, something dark was about to unfold. The morning of horror. The next day, December 26, 1996, started like any other morning but quickly turned into chaos. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy Ramsey called 911 in panic. Her voice trembled as she told the operator that her daughter was missing. She said she had found a 2.5-page ransom note on the kitchen staircase, demanding $118,000 for JonBenét's safe return. The note was strange, long, rambling, and oddly specific. The amount, $118,000, was almost exactly the amount of John Ramsey's recent bonus at work. Police arrived quickly, but from the very beginning mistakes were made. Officers allowed friends and family into the house, contaminating the crime scene. The ransom note was handled without proper care, and the family wasn't separated for questioning. Instead of treating the house like a sealed-off crime scene, it became a place of movement, conversation, and confusion. The ransom note. The ransom note remains one of the most analyzed pieces of evidence in criminal history. Written in block letters on 3 pages, it addressed John Ramsey directly, claiming that a foreign faction had kidnapped JonBenét. It demanded $118,000 in cash to be delivered the next day, warning that if the police were contacted, JonBenét would be killed. But the note had glaring oddities. Why would kidnappers spend so much time writing such a long letter inside the victim's house, risking being caught? Why demand such a specific and relatively small amount of money from a millionaire? Linguistic experts later said it seemed staged, written by someone trying to imitate the style of a movie ransom note. Even stranger, the note was written using paper and pens from inside the Ramsey home. The shocking discovery. By early afternoon, after hours of confusion and waiting for instructions from the supposed kidnappers, police asked John Ramsey and a family friend to search the house again. It was then, around 1:00 p.m., that John went into the basement. There, in a small wine cellar room, he found his daughter's lifeless body. JonBenét was lying on the floor, covered with a white blanket. Her wrists were tied, her mouth was covered with duct tape, and a garrote, A device made with a broken paintbrush handle and cord was around her neck. The horror of that moment cannot be overstated. The little girl, once the center of Christmas joy, was now the victim of a brutal crime inside her own home. John picked up her body and carried her upstairs, further disturbing evidence. Officers and paramedics were stunned, realizing that the ransom note was a cruel distraction. JonBenét had never left the house. She had been murdered in the basement. Shockwaves across America. The news spread rapidly. By the evening of December 26th, local media had picked up the story, and within days, national outlets made JonBenét a household name. The contrast between the glamorous pageant photos of her in glittering dresses and the gruesome details of her death fascinated and horrified the public. Who could do such a thing? Why would anyone target a child on Christmas night? And why inside the family's own mansion? From the very beginning, suspicion fell on the Ramseys themselves. Police noted inconsistencies in their statements, the unusual ransom note, and the lack of evidence of forced entry. Theories began to form. Was this the work of an intruder, or was it someone inside the house? That question, nearly 3 decades later, remains unanswered. Investigation and suspicion, English. The discovery of JonBenét's body inside the Ramsey home turned the case from a kidnapping into a homicide. But the way the crime scene had been handled on that first day, with contamination, confusion, and broken procedures, left investigators with serious disadvantages. Still, the Boulder Police Department pressed forward, determined to find answers. And very quickly, their focus turned not outward but inward, on the Ramsey family themselves. Early impressions. From the beginning, detectives felt that the ransom note didn't make sense. It was too long, too theatrical, and contained strange references to movies like Dirty Harry. Most kidnappers kept their notes short and direct, but this one rambled on for 3 full pages. Even the handwriting analysis pointed in uncomfortable directions. Experts believed Patsy Ramsey's handwriting could not be ruled out as the source. The $118,000 demand was equally suspicious. Why ask for such a specific figure that matched John Ramsey's recent Christmas bonus? To investigators, this seemed less like a random crime and more like an inside job. The Ramsey family's behavior. The Ramseys' behavior in the hours and days after the discovery raised eyebrows. John Ramsey, in a press conference, seemed composed rather than devastated. Patsy, dressed in heavy makeup and clothing, looked more like she was performing than grieving. To many viewers, something felt off. When asked for interviews, the Ramseys initially refused private police questioning unless they could do it together and with lawyers present. Investigators found this suspicious. To the public, it looked like they were hiding something. Soon the media was painting them as prime suspects. The Boulder police believed the likely scenario was that someone in the house had harmed JonBenét, perhaps accidentally, and then staged the crime scene, writing the ransom note to divert attention. The autopsy. On December 27, 1996, the Boulder County coroner conducted an autopsy on JonBenét. The findings shocked the public. Cause of death was strangulation, with head trauma as a contributing factor. She had been struck on the head with a blunt object, causing a skull fracture. A garrote made from a paintbrush handle had been used to strangle her. There were signs of possible sexual assault, though inconclusive. The brutality of the crime against a 6-year-old girl horrified even seasoned detectives. But the mixed evidence made the case harder. Was this the work of a sadistic intruder or a staged scene to cover up a domestic incident? Media frenzy. By early 1997, the JonBenét case had exploded into one of the biggest media stories in America. Tabloids published JonBenét's glamorous pageant photos alongside headlines like "Little Miss Murdered." TV channels debated daily whether her parents were guilty. For many, the idea of a wealthy, perfect-looking family hiding a dark secret was irresistible. The pageant world itself came under fire. Critics asked whether Patsy had pushed her daughter too far into an adult-like role. Others believed a pedophile had targeted JonBenét after seeing her in competitions. The Ramseys became both victims and villains in the public eye. They were followed, analyzed, and attacked relentlessly. Police versus prosecutors. Behind the scenes, tension grew between the Boulder police and the district attorney's office. Police were convinced the Ramseys were responsible, but prosecutors argued there wasn't enough hard evidence to press charges. The ransom note, the lack of forced entry, the strange behavior, all of it was circumstantial. Without a clear confession or solid forensic evidence, the case was shaky. This division weakened the investigation. Instead of working as a united front, law enforcement was split, and the Ramseys, high-powered attorneys, seized every opportunity to exploit those cracks. Theories inside the house. Several theories developed in those early months. Patsy Ramsey theory. Some investigators believed Patsy may have lost her temper, perhaps during a late-night bedwetting incident with JonBenét, and struck her. Then, in panic, staged the scene to look like a kidnapping. John Ramsey theory. A darker theory suggested John may have been involved in sexual abuse, and when JonBenét was fatally injured, he covered it up. This was never proven and strongly denied by John. Burke Ramsey theory. Some believed 9-year-old Burke may have hit his sister in anger, unintentionally killing her, and the parents covered it up to protect him. Burke was questioned multiple times, but investigators could not find solid evidence linking him. Each theory divided experts, but none could be proven beyond doubt. The intruder theory. Not everyone believed the Ramseys were guilty. Some detectives and independent experts pointed to evidence suggesting an intruder. A broken basement window that could have been an entry point. An unidentified footprint found in the basement. DNA evidence on JonBenét's underwear that did not match any family member. Supporters of this theory argued that the police had been too quick to target the parents, blinding themselves to the possibility of a real kidnapper or pedophile sneaking into the house that night. But if an intruder had done it, why write such a bizarre ransom note? Why kill the girl inside the house instead of taking her away? The contradictions left everyone frustrated. Pressure on the family. Throughout 1997 and 1998, the Ramseys lived under suspicion. They appeared on television, proclaiming their innocence. John often said, "There's a killer out there, and they are not looking for him." Patsy maintained her daughter's memory by giving interviews and insisting she loved JonBenét too much to harm her. But the court of public opinion had already made its judgment. To many Americans, the Ramseys were guilty. They had the motive, the opportunity, and the means to cover up the crime. And yet, without enough evidence, the case stalled. No arrests were made. JonBenét's killer remained free. DNA theories and an unsolved legacy. By 1999, 3 years had passed since the horrific Christmas night murder of JonBenét Ramsey. Despite endless media attention, dozens of interviews, handwriting analyses, and public speculation, the case had no clear resolution. The Boulder police believed the Ramseys knew more than they were saying, but prosecutors remained unconvinced. And in the middle of it all was the unanswered question: who killed JonBenét? Grand jury, but no charges. In 1999, a Boulder County grand jury was convened to review the evidence. After months of testimony, the jury actually voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey on charges of child abuse resulting in death. But the district attorney at the time, Alex Hunter, declined to sign the indictment, citing insufficient evidence. To the public, this was explosive. A grand jury had believed there was enough to charge the parents, yet the DA stopped it. For many, this confirmed suspicions that powerful influence, wealth, and the family's legal team had protected them. The Ramseys, however, took it as vindication. No charges meant they were innocent. The case, once again, was at a dead end. DNA evidence changes the case. In 2003, new developments emerged with DNA testing. Forensic scientists analyzed material found on JonBenét's underwear and beneath her fingernails. The profile matched neither John, Patsy, nor Burke Ramsey. It belonged to an unidentified male. This evidence breathed life into the intruder theory. If an outsider's DNA was present, it suggested someone else had been in contact with JonBenét during her final hours. Supporters of the Ramseys pointed to this as proof that police had unfairly targeted the family for years. However, skeptics argued that the DNA could have come from manufacturing or handling of the clothing, not necessarily from the killer. Still, the finding was strong enough that in 2008, Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey officially cleared the Ramsey family, apologizing for years of suspicion. The suspect who wasn't, John Mark Carr. In 2006, the case took a bizarre turn. A schoolteacher named John Mark Carr, living in Thailand, confessed to killing JonBenét. He was arrested and flown to the United States amid a storm of media coverage. But soon, his story fell apart. His DNA did not match the evidence, and his timeline didn't make sense. Investigators concluded he was a fantasist seeking attention. The arrest was humiliating for the authorities and painful for the Ramsey family, who had already endured a decade of suspicion. The case returned to square one, unsolved. Intruder theory versus family theory. Over time, two dominant camps have emerged. Family guilt theory. Believers in this camp argue the ransom note was staged. The evidence of an intruder was weak, and the family's odd behavior cannot be ignored. They point out that no clear sign of forced entry existed, and the note itself almost certainly came from inside the house. Intruder theory supporters highlight the unknown male DNA, the broken basement window, the foreign footprint, and the possibility of a pedophile targeting JonBenét through her pageant appearances. They argue the family was wrongly villainized by sloppy police work. Both theories have strong defenders, and to this day, the debate rages on. The tragedy deepens. In 2006, Patsy Ramsey lost her battle with ovarian cancer, taking her last breath without ever seeing justice for her daughter. John Ramsey remarried and continued to speak publicly about the case, urging law enforcement to keep searching for the truth. Burke Ramsey, now an adult, remained largely private until 2016, when he gave a rare interview on Dr. Phil, denying any involvement and insisting he had nothing to hide. Despite the passage of decades, the case still haunts the Ramsey family. For many Americans, their name is forever linked not to wealth or success, but to suspicion, tragedy, and mystery. Cultural impact. The JonBenét Ramsey case became more than just a crime story. It became a cultural phenomenon. Documentaries, TV specials, books, and podcasts have examined every angle. Internet sleuths continue to analyze the ransom note, debate the autopsy, and pore over the 911 call. The image of JonBenét smiling in sequined dresses and tiaras has become an unsettling symbol of innocence lost. For some, it represents the dangers of child pageantry. For others, it's a reminder of justice denied. Even after nearly 30 years, whenever new DNA techniques emerge, people ask, will JonBenét's killer finally be caught? Why the case remains unsolved? The truth is that the investigation's early mistakes doomed the case. Allowing friends to enter the crime scene, moving the body, mishandling the ransom note, all of these destroyed valuable forensic evidence. Combine that with police versus prosecutor conflicts, media circus pressure, and the lack of a clear suspect, and the case fell apart. Today, the unidentified DNA remains the strongest hope. Advances in genetic genealogy, the same method that caught the Golden State Killer, could one day provide an answer. But until then, JonBenét's murder sits as one of the world's most famous unsolved crimes. Legacy of mystery. On Christmas, families still light candles and hang stockings. But for many, the name JonBenét Ramsey is forever tied to that holiday season of 1996. A reminder that behind the glitter and glamour of wealth, darkness can still creep in. She was only 6 years old, a child who should have been safe in her bed. Instead, she became the center of one of the most infamous mysteries in true crime history. And until her killer is found, the case of JonBenét Ramsey remains a wound in America's memory, a story without an ending.